So this is the Chapter 12 lecture. Chapter 12 is entitled The Presidency, Leading the Nation. This was always designed to be a one-day lecture, and so there are parts of the text that I will not go over and that I will not put on the quiz. The quiz is going to be a joint quiz with chapter 14. We are not doing chapter 13, so we are going to talk about the presidency. We're going to skip the federal bureaucracy, so I will talk about some of the bureaucracy in this lecture, and then the next lecture will be chapter 14, the federal judicial system, and the quiz will be over chapter 12 and 14. Now, this is the Prezi that I have given you a link to. Guess we're going to get started. There we go. So it is more than a notion in the United States to be the president of the United States. In this chapter, we're going to discuss a few things. We're going to talk about the constitutional provisions that make up the presidency. Then we will talk about the roles and responsibilities of the president under the Constitution. We will talk about the expansion of presidential power, and make no mistake about it, presidential power has expanded in the United States. We'll talk about the organization and function of the executive office of president. That's kind of the bureaucracy part. And we will talk about the relationship between the president and the public. A little bit about the relationship of the president and Congress. This is a political cartoon that I pulled from, I don't know, another book maybe. It tickled the heck out of me. It's a little dated because, as you can see, Barack Obama is the subject, and the person that is in it is Rahm Emanuel, who was President Obama's first chief of staff. But it says he's going to fix the economy and restore my 401k. He's going to get me and my family free health care and bring me a pony. He's going to heal the racial divide and make Kumbaya our national anthem. He's going to end the war. He's going to bring peace to the world, make that the universe. He's going to invent a car that runs on Jell-O, thus ending global warming. He's going to sprinkle magic fairy dust into the clouds, producing daily rainbows. And that's in his first 100 days. So Rahm Emanuel is telling Barack Obama, fair warning, expectations are high. I'll be honest with you. I am always a little surprised when men and women show up and say, I would like this job. Now, from my understanding, our first president, George Washington, was a bit reluctant, but he felt like it was his obligation. He was pretty humble in a general sense, slaveholder and chasing his escaped slaves until his dying days notwithstanding. He was a statesman, and certainly the picture that the founders had when they moved over to Article 2 and decided that they were going to have an executive, just one executive for neatness and for issues of having a face for foreign diplomats to come and speak to, and foreign leaders, and making quick decisions when there were emergencies. They really had in their mind everybody was going to be like George Washington. So They did not give a whole bunch of instructions. They made a lot of assumptions. And George Washington started traditions that they really believed were going to last forever. So these are some of the things that they put in the Constitution. In Article 2 of the Constitution, much shorter than Article 1, longer than Article 3, but much shorter than Article 1. Qualifications to be President of the United States. You do have to be a natural born citizen of the United States. You have to be at least 35 years old, and you have to be a resident or have been a resident of the United States for 14 years or longer immediately prior to running for president. And that's it. There are no education requirements. There's no serving in another office requirements. There are no, this is it. 35, born in the United States, resident for 14 years. We've had a couple of issues come up when John McCain, God rest his soul, ran for president. He was actually born in Panama, but he was born on an American military base. He was able to get Congress to write down that we believe this qualifies as a natural born citizen. There was never really a challenge because he was born on American territory. Then 4 years ago, Ted Cruz ran for president, and a lawsuit was filed because Ted Cruz was actually born in Canada. His mother was an American citizen, and she had dual citizenship, and they wrote on his birth certificate that he was an American citizen. But there was a real question about what does natural born citizen of the United States mean, and it was never fully litigated because Donald Trump got the Republican nomination, so we never were able to fully explore that. There is listed the power of the House of Representatives to impeach presidents. Now, we talked about this a little bit in chapter 11, so I won't belabor the point, but we have had 2 presidents impeached. Andrew Johnson was impeached for not following a law that that he had vetoed, but the veto had been overridden. He missed being removed from office by 1 vote. William Jefferson Clinton was impeached or charged with obstruction of justice, if I'm not mistaken, because he lied under oath about a relationship, extramarital relationship that he had had with an intern, and had solicited her to also lie. So it was obstruction of justice, lying under oath, and by the time public opinion had come back to the ears of the senators, it wasn't even close. By the time that it went to the trial, the senators didn't remove him from office either. Since I did this Prezi, we have had another president impeached, and that is Donald Trump, our current president. Today is October 27th, 2020. And same thing. When he was charged, or articles of impeachment were drafted, was obstruction of Congress, I believe was the charge. The charges were that he had called the president of the Ukraine and solicited information about Joe Biden, who was at that time not even the Democratic nominee, and was looking for information that showed some corrupt activity on behalf of Joe Biden through his son Hunter. And basically what was charged was that he told the Ukrainian president that there was some aid that had been voted on by Congress that was being withheld, and it would only come if the president got the information, or at least made a statement that they were investigating this information. Again, this went to the Senate. The Senate had a Republican majority, and it was as close as the 51-49 majority that the Republicans had. One Republican voted for removal, and that was Mitt Romney on one of the charges. So we still have never had a president actually removed. Richard Nixon started the impeachment process. He resigned before it went to the Senate, if I'm not, or maybe right after it went to the Senate. So they never completed the Senate trial. It was pretty clear what Richard Nixon was being investigated for was hiring some people to break into the Democratic headquarters at the Watergate Hotel and just get information about their process and their strategies, because he was very leery of them. He was running for re-election. The people that were, and he ordered it directly, he taped every conversation that he ever had in the White House, and so there were tapes of him ordering this. The 5 men that were commissioned, I guess we'll say, to go into the hotel were caught, and they immediately told what had happened and why they were there and what they were doing. So it went relatively quickly, and the senators told Richard Nixon, this is not looking good, and if this comes over to the Senate, you're probably going to be removed, and he resigned. So this is a picture of the living ex-presidents, and again, I made this a little before the pictures were updated. So certainly what you're going to see in your textbook are pictures of President Trump, and rightly so. But I made this Prezi a little while ago.
If a get-together featuring 5 real presidents was a big deal...
This is an extraordinary gathering.
Yeah, well then, so is this.
Now listen, Borat.
Barack.
The most famous presidential impersonators of all time gathered in one room to offer advice to the Obamas.
Man, and Michelle has got some legs on her.
How'd you two get in here?
The security code is still 1, 2, 3, 4 from when I was pres. Only took me 5 times to remember it.
Saturday Night Live stars like Will Ferrell.
Betty, did you change the locks again?
And Chevy Chase doing Gerald Ford.
Yeah, well, if you'd listened to me, you would have raised taxes.
And Dana Carvey doing George Bush Sr.
Yeah, that second term of yours was a real victory lapper, wasn't it, Dubbers?
Topped off with Jim Carrey as Ronald Reagan.
To help Mr. Reach across the aisles here, grow up here.
It was a reunion of the presidents of comedy, says director Jake Szymanski.
Absolutely. It was incredible.
And they're just as excited as everyone else. I mean, they're all friends and know each other, but they haven't done anything like this before. So everyone's kind of just looking around saying, I can't believe this is happening.
The comedians donated their time to make this Funny or Die video to push for financial reform and the creation of
The Consumer Protection Agency.
the video, shot in a day from noon to midnight,
Close up of everybody.
was directed by Ron Howard.
When I put the Iraq War on my credit card, I never dreamed I'd be paying 28% in interest rates.
I want to thank the President-elect for joining the ex-presidents.
Occasionally, the real presidents were unintentionally almost as funny as their impersonators. For instance, when George Bush Sr. almost shook hands with his hanky, or when Bill Clinton got lovey-dovey about the Oval Office rug.
I love this rug.
Of course, only the impersonators could bring back departed presidents.
I'm dead, but I'm going to be a guest on Dancing with the Stars this season.
Both the real presidents and the impersonators took a group photo. Should you decide to do what the video says and call your senator, make sure you use the phone, not the glass. Jeannie Mo, CNN.
President Barack Obama,
New York.
Never showed up.
Bless. One thing is for sure, one of the things that you have to endure as a United States president is being made fun of by many news shows, but most famously and most consistently, Saturday Night Live. Another thing that Article 2 says is that Congress is authorized to award President a compensation, which can neither be increased or decreased during the presidential term. George Washington made $25,000 a year, as did the next 16 presidents. Then it started to jump in increments of $25,000 until it reached and stayed at $200,000. And then George W. Bush was the first president to make $400,000. Barack Obama made $400,000. It was not reduced. And President Trump has not been taking the salary. So a whole bunch of news reports have come out about charging money for food and board for when things are being hosted at Trump locations. And I say Trump locations because they're all usually named Trump something, except the location in Florida is called Mar-a-Lago. But is not accepting a salary. But that is the presidential salary as of now. There are some other perks that come with being president of the United States. Of course, you get to live in the White House. You get to pick your chef, and the chef doesn't necessarily live in the White House, but is basically on call for whenever you want to host something. If you are hosting a dinner or something personal in the White House, you pay for that. That comes out of your salary. I'll say it that way. It does not come out of a budget that's set aside. Now, what does come out of the budget? In the White House, there is a pool, there's a bowling alley, there's a basketball court, and I mean, basically, when you come in, you say, "I'd like this," and they remodel. So Barack Obama had the basketball court put in. Richard Nixon had the bowling alley moved and upgraded because he was actually a bowler. I think that either Truman or Eisenhower put in the original bowling alley. There's all kinds of stories about John F. Kennedy and that pool. He was always summoning interns to the pool, but this was before media was reporting on such things. You also have access to a second location. It is called Camp David. I believe Camp David is in Virginia. And it is a quiet country home that is designed to be the place where you go away. It really has become the place where you have quiet summits without all the cameras. Most modern presidents have had someplace else that they went when they were literally trying to get away. President Bush bought a ranch in Crawford, Texas, and would go there. President Obama was from Hawaii, and he would always go visit his grandmother there, his grandmother there, because his mom passed away right before he won in 2008. President Trump has several locations that are owned by his business, and he goes to Bedminster, he goes to Mar-a-Lago. Those are the two that you hear about the most, but he has other locations that he goes to. They get great health care, really, for the rest of their lives. While they're presidents, they have access to a fleet of cars and several aircraft. The main one, the one that they actually travel in, the aircraft is called Air Force One. After the presidency is over, the pension is about $186,000 a year. Most of the time, presidents also write books and do speaking engagements, so they usually make quite a bit more than that $186,000, but it is there. You get money for travel. You get a budget for travel for your office and your staff. And when they moved the compensation of the president to $400,000, that bill also said that Secret Service would only last for 10 years. So this year is, let's see, no, it's been more than 10 years since George W. Bush was out of office. I don't know if he got rid of his Secret Service protection or not. And Barack Obama has not been out of office for 10 years. So I don't know if they'll be changing that, because that seems a little odd to me. I think presidents are going to need Secret Service protection for the rest of their lives. So let's talk about the jobs of the president. Article 2 says this. It says the executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States. Another way to look at that is that it is the president's job to execute. Any law that is passed, the president's job is to make sure that it actually happens. Either that he does it or that someone under his control gets it done. And this is a tremendous outlay of power. Our presidents are held in high esteem in the United States. Maybe that's why people keep seeking the job. But again, I still say that this is a tremendously difficult job. This, I believe, is Ronald Reagan's funeral, because I'm looking at who is standing over there. Dick Cheney, who was President Bush's vice president, George H.W. Bush, and Barbara Bush, who both passed within the last 2 years. George W. Bush, Laura Bush. So I'm thinking that this must be the funeral of Ronald Reagan. And we pour a lot of pomp and circumstance, and we pour a lot of responsibility for ourselves, for our emotions, for our well-being into presidents. Now this picture is of the federal building in Oklahoma. While Bill Clinton was president, a couple of guys got together. We have later discovered that they were part of a militia, and they decided they were going to blow up the building. And they did that. This is the ruins of it, and several people were killed. There was a daycare center inside the building. Bill Clinton rushed to Oklahoma, and he made a speech that recognized how hard this was and let the people in Oklahoma know that America was behind them. He cried. It was tough. This was a tough one. And these are some of the things that presidents are called on to address. And we Americans judge how you respond. When George W. Bush was president, there was a hurricane that made its way through the coast. It hit really hard and caused big devastation or huge devastation in Mississippi. It hit in Louisiana, but that was not the primary issue. It just kept raining in Louisiana. And in New Orleans, I know the rain eventually broke a levee that caused the lower parts of the city to flood. And so there were people that were trapped in their homes. There were people that could not afford to leave when they were ordered to leave. There were a huge crowd of people that were in the sports arena. It was pretty devastating. $106 billion in damage. And President Bush, in a lot of people's opinion, did not respond quickly enough, and did not go to New Orleans, which was in the aftermath experiencing probably the most visible and widespread devastation. We'll just say it like that. He flew over New Orleans and ended up touring Mississippi, and he was criticized. He was criticized heavily because we did not feel as Americans as if he had met the moment. Earlier in 2001, September 11th, 2001, some planes flew into the World Trade Center, and they flew into the World Trade Center, and one plane was headed toward the Pentagon, but the people on the plane basically got control of the person that tried to hijack, and the plane crashed. In the end, about 3,000 people were killed. And President Bush went to the locations. He talked to the people. He comforted the people. And then he made a speech. And the speech basically said, if you are responsible for this, you need to be scared because you don't mess with America like this, and we are coming to get you. That was the right tone, and he met that moment. And everybody was behind President Bush in 2001, and as unprecedented measures were put in place to find the people that were responsible, we looked the other way when they started tapping people's phones and started following people on social media. All of it, we were like, do what you have to do. But that was, he had two big calamities plus the start of a war. The picture on the left is President Obama at, I want to say, Sandy Hook. There was a gentleman, a young man that walked into an elementary school, and he just started shooting in the elementary school. His mother had bought the guns for him. He killed his mother first, and then went to the school and killed some children and teachers. And President Obama goes. He consoled. The picture on the right, I believe, is Hurricane Sandy, which hit the East Coast, Northeast Coast, so around New Jersey, and you see that President Obama went and talked with people and hugged them.
Amazing grace. Amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch.
Now, you may not have ever been to an African American church. This was a Methodist church. I guess it's right there, African Methodist Episcopal Church. And so you probably have no idea about the significance, or you may, of the song Amazing Grace. But you don't have to know anything about the song to see that apparently when he did that, the way that people reacted, that was the right thing to do at that time. They responded with almost glee. And again, we put a lot of pressure on our presidents.
There's a lot of love in this room. A lot of love in this room. Great people. the governor. All right, governor.
So there are some that say that President Trump doesn't strike the right tone, but there have been many issues while he is president. There was a school shooting in Florida at a high school. There was a shooting in Las Vegas where a guy stood at the top of a hotel and shot several people. There have been a couple of really bad hurricanes. That one hit in Puerto Rico. There was one that hit Texas really hard. Shoots, even this year we have had, I don't think we really want to talk about 2020, but we've had 3 pretty big hurricanes. There were so many hurricanes this season that they ran out of A to Z names. They started naming them Greek letters. So I think Delta was the last one that hit in mainland United States. So there is a lot that we ask of the presidents. Let's switch topics a little bit and talk about the line of succession. We hear a lot about this. There's a lot of misinformation that goes around the internets. So let's make sure that we have this straight. So we have the President of the United States. We have a Vice President that at this time is chosen before they run. I don't know who was I don't know who George Washington's vice president was, but John Adams' vice president was Thomas Jefferson, because Thomas Jefferson was second in the running, and Thomas Jefferson's vice president was Aaron Burr, who was second when he ran. Now they pick. And that person is second in line to be president by tradition for many years, and then made a part of the 25th Amendment in 1960s. If the president cannot serve and the vice president can't serve, the Speaker of the House is third in line for the presidency. And then after the Speaker of the House is the President pro tem. Remember, we talked about this is the senior most person in the majority party in the Senate, is fourth in line. Then you start going through the cabinet, starting with basically in the order that they came into the executive branch. So George Washington had a Secretary of State, and he had a Secretary of Treasury. If you've seen the movie or the play Hamilton, and I guess now the movie Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton was the Secretary of Treasury. Then Defense, the Attorney General, Secretary of the Interior, all the way down to the most recently created department, which is the Department of Homeland Security, which was created in 2001 or 2 under the George W. Bush administration. So these are, just notice that the heads of the departments are called secretaries of all the departments are called secretaries, except the head of the judiciary department. And that person is called the Attorney General. Nice.